This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joie.
Brought to you by ASUS. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joie, and today is Wednesday, May 7th, 2025. And I've got the awesome Whitson Gordon of ASUS here with me. Hi, Whitson. How are you?
I'm doing great, Miriam. How you doing?
I'm wonderful. You are our special guest. We're going to talk about some ROG devices. You settle this for me, by the way. I get a lot of confusion on the podcast. People are saying, you should not be calling it that. It's Republic of Gamers. Some people are like ROG. And I think ROG seems more fitting.
ROG is what we call it. For sure.
All right.
You know, we'll say Republic of Gamers occasionally, but ROG is what we call it internally. If we say ROG, you know, you get a timeout. That's not.
That's what I thought. Okay.
What we say.
So, we're on the same page. I'm glad.
But no embarrassment. You know what? After years of building computers and doing all of this stuff, I learned how to pronounce ASUS properly on my first day of the job when HR corrected me.
So that's the other thing, that I tend to call it ASUS, but some people say ASUS, and you're the pro. So is it ASUS?
It is ASUS.
ASUS ROG. Okay, folks, there you go. That's it.
Mark from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, like we're absolutely set on that. All right, so let's talk about some of the new devices. I'm excited about the tablet, particularly the Flow Z13, because, you know, I have a similar ASUS product right now in my hands, and it's the creator version of that. You know, it's not an ROG product.
The Pro Art.
That's it, the Pro Art. Annie's hooked me up with that, and I think it's really, really fantastic. And so I'm kind of curious, like, what did you have to do technically to make this tablet a gaming product? Because it is a Windows, device, right?
It is. And actually, if my history is correct here, I think this series actually started on the gaming side.
I see.
We came out with the first Flow Z13 a couple of years ago, and they said, it has a touch screen. It's got this dedicated graphics chip in it. It would make it's a natural fit for the Pro Art line as well. So they made the Pro Art PZ13 as kind of a more design focused version of that. This year, though, we did redesign the ROG one kind of completely from the ground up, right? And it was such a cool concept to begin with. But this year, they said, okay, when you're working with, a form factor that's this compact. It's only 13 inches, right?
Yeah, it's insane.
It's a tablet. It doesn't have that.
And it's so thin, too. Like, considering you got an entire GPU and everything in there, it just blows my mind.
Well, so the original version had a separate CPU and NVIDIA GPU, right? And that's great. It gives you lots of performance, but it does take more power because you're driving two separate chips.
Of course, yeah.
Right? And so when you're working with something that portable, battery life is very important to people. We know. So, one of the big goals this year was how can we bring that up while keeping that level of performance that made the first one so great? And so we used one of AMD's new Strix Halo chips in it.
That's
so you're
right.
only driving one chip. It's ultra efficient, but it still has that crazily powerful integrated graphics chip.
And that's what I'm
So
saying when I say the GPU. I know it's not separate. I was you guys didn't skimp on that, which is critical for a gaming machine.
Yeah, you can't. Absolutely. So, we wanted to make it better without skimping on that performance. And yeah, the new Strix Halo chip is just incredible. And it gives you a ton of flexibility too. That's the other benefit, is not only do you get this efficiency out of it, you get this battery life, but because it's that all-in-one chip, all of your memory is unified. You don't have a GPU with its own little section of VRAM and then your system RAM over here. You just have a big pool of memory. And on the Flow Z13, we actually sell it with up to 128 gigs of memory.
Right.
On our top end SKU, which you can then allocate however you want. If you want a bunch of VRAM for games or for working with AI models or whatever the heck you're doing, you could just say I want to give 96 gigs to VRAM.
Right.
And you can do that, which is great, because then I know that's a big kind of hot topic, especially in gaming these days. It's I want a lot of VRAM because I want to run really high res textures or whatever.
Sure.
This lets you kind of configure that however you want, which is really cool.
And so are you giving a bunch of sliders to the game players, the owners of the tablet to kind of adjust not just like memory, but a bunch of other parameters that control some of the hardware things? Because, the problem, right, with the integration nowadays is efficiency is great. You get better battery life, right? You get better memory bandwidth between the GPU and CPU, but then nothing's upgradable anymore. And for gamers, they lose the ability to tweak and kind of be selective about how they want their system to function. So I'm kind of wondering how you kind of resolve those two things, because we want the efficiency, we want the lightweight. That's the whole point of this product, right?
Well, and it does depend on the device, right? So, for our ROG Strix machines, which are the kind of our bigger, really high performance laptops, those are, like balls to the wall, best performance you can
21
get.
inches.
Not quite, but I think 18 is our biggest. But those, we actually this year introduced a new design that's completely toolless for you to open it up and upgrade the RAM and the storage and things like that. Because that is really important to a lot of people. But for the people who are willing to give that up for something really slim and portable, like the Flow Z13 or like, the Zephyrus G14 here, which is my personal favorite, we do want to give them some of those options. And so not only can you allocate the memory however you want, but you have sliders to adjust the TDP of the chip on there so that you can save battery or max out performance. It's funny, a lot of people, when you go into our software, you have those like silent mode, performance mode, turbo mode. And a lot of people think that those are just fan curves, right? That turbo mode just ramps the fans up to max, but it actually controls all these other parameters, right? Like the wattage being allocated to that chip. And so we try to make it easy for people. And then we have, of course, a manual mode for people who want to go in and like manually set stuff themselves and tweak the fan curves. And because, people, especially gamers, but all techies love to do that kind of stuff, right? Myself included.
Yeah, I know for sure. So tell us a little more about some of the other specs. So, obviously, it's thin, it's light. Ish. I mean, comparatively for compared to like one of the gaming laptops, the Strix laptops, obviously much more portable, which is really great, right? What are you looking at in terms of display? I know that the ProArt I have has a beautiful OLED panel. I presume it's probably the same panel, right? Or something similar? It's
not. We're actually not using an OLED panel on the Flow Z13.
But high refresh, right?
It is, yes. It's a high refresh display. It's very high resolution. It's got that still great like color performance, right? That DCI P3 color gamut that you want to see when you're playing a really vibrant game. One of the reasons that we didn't go OLED on it, I hear people ask this a lot. One of the most crucial features that separates a gaming device from a non-gaming device is variable refresh rate, right?
Right.
G-Sync on the NVIDIA side, FreeSync on the AMD side, it's called. Ever since that came out, I will not buy a gaming display or a gaming device with a display that doesn't have that feature.
I mean, all gamers are on board here.
Yeah, because it cuts down on the screen tearing and some of the stutter when the output of your GPU doesn't match the display's refresh rate. So that's non-negotiable. And it's historically been a lot more difficult to implement that on OLED displays.
Right.
We actually were the first ones to do it, again, on the Zephyrus machines we came out with last year. And we had to work with NVIDIA and Samsung Display, who manufactures the panel, and do all of this kind of weird engineering wizardry to make VRR work on a mobile OLED display. We have them on desktop OLEDs, but on mobile OLEDs, just due to the way that the display driver and chip kind of works, it's actually very difficult. And it also can be a bit more of a power suck. So in lieu of that, for the Flow Z13, VRR, again, non-negotiable. So we instead went with this really beautiful LED display instead.
Yeah, I think the challenge with OLEDs, and I'm seeing this on phones, right? Like LTPO now lets you vary the refresh rate from like almost 1 hertz to generally 120, 144, 165, depending on the panel you're using. The problem is it's a relatively slow ramp, right? Because you're just scrolling, right? So it's like you need to be able to suddenly go from 1 hertz to like maybe 120. But it takes a few milliseconds to do that, you're fine. On a game, you don't have that. You need to be able to respond. It has to be
on the fly. It has to be constant.
To the GPU is telling you right now, you're at 67 hertz. You're at 67 hertz. That's it, right? Like I'm making up a number. But I think that's, I totally understand the challenge, but I think it's going to get resolved. I think like 5 years from now, pretty much everything will be OLED and we'll have the sync stuff. And, but it's interesting. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So you got a really high quality, I presume IPS LCD on there, high refresh. Like how high can it go?
The refresh on the Flow Z13 is, I believe, 180 hertz on this year's model.
Wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, high refresh is going to be perfect. Whether you could pull out that, it has the keyboard cover You could use that with a mouse and play that way. But, the times that I've used it, it's so great to pull it out with just a controller, like
a controller.
Xbox
And then you can have another person with
a
another controller and you guys can share,
totally.
Right? That's the other thing.
You can do it on the plane. You could do it anywhere. It's awesome. And
Nice.
the other thing that's kind of unique to the Flow Z13 versus other laptops is because all of the stuff, the motherboard, the graphics chip, all that stuff is housed behind the display, as opposed to a traditional clamshell laptop where it's held in the base, right? And the base is right next to your desk or whatever surface you're putting it on. With the Flow Z13, you have it on a stand.
Right. So you get vertical, like cold air coming in, hot air coming out. You can actually optimize
have so much
thermals.
More room for fresh airflow.
Very nice.
That's another kind of, especially if you're going to be sitting there playing it with a gamepad or whatever, that's a really kind of unique benefit to that form factor that a lot of people don't realize.
So how many fans are in there total, and how loud are they? Because I've noticed the ProArt, when it's plugged into charge, can get a little kind of like jet engine-ish, right? And of course it's a creative tablet. It's designed for like rendering video and stuff. So of course it's going to have some horsepower too, but it's a different beast. I'm just kind of curious how different the fan configuration might be and the Flow.
So one thing we did this year to try and combat that as much as we could, right? There's only so much you can do against the laws of physics. And when you have, fans that are that small in that compact of a device with that kind of a thermal profile, it's going to be a little bit noisier than, say, a desktop or a console, right? But you can do a little bit to kind of mitigate that. And one of the things we did is we put in a custom vapor chamber on the Flow Z13, because that is going to help dissipate that heat from the chip more efficiently. Again, you're only using one chip, which also helps. But, and we tried to use lightweight materials for that vapor chamber too, so it didn't increase the heft of the device, because again, portability is king for something like this.
Right.
So with a vapor chamber, with the fans that we've spent years kind of improving and developing, and we're using these really thin blades on that to try and fit as many blades as we can in, so we can push more airflow with less speed. All of that stuff kind of adds up. And, it's not going to be as silent as a desktop, but you can do a lot with it, especially, again, if you're willing to play with those TGP sliders, and depending on the game you're playing, you can do all right. And then, there's always a good pair of headphones too.
Oh, of course. Yeah. And you guys have that too, like the microphone that's right in front of you. For those of you watching on Patreon right now, Whitson's got a really lovely ROG mic there.
I've got a headset too, but I don't, the microphone's better. But even the mic on these headsets has gotten really good.
Was that a Zephyrus you pulled out earlier, the laptop?
The laptop, yes. This is my personal favorite machine.
G14?
This is the Zephyrus G14.
I love that computer so much. For me, that's the thing. I have no problems with the gaming devices, but I like a device that, and I think my audience too, that's versatile enough to be my main device for everything, right?
Yes.
Because when you're traveling, like you and I travel a ton, right? So we're always on the road, and it's like you want the power, but you want the lightweight. Like it gets really tiring. And that's another reason why I like some of the other products you guys make, like the ROG phone, right? The Phone 9 Pro and all the, it's, you got it right there. It's, to me, I've used a bunch of them in the past. I was at the original ROG phone launch in Taipei years ago. That's, that was quite a special one. ASUS took me out there. So anyway, the point I'm making is that I think a lot of what you're doing on this tablet comes, I think, from the phone in a way, right? The vapor chamber technology, I think that's the one thing that makes this product so interesting to me, is that you've got like the laptops and you've got so much expertise. ASUS has so much expertise there. And then you have this phone that on 9th generation now, so much expertise there, right? Making some of the best gaming phones. And now you're kind of in a way like taking that vapor chamber and you're bringing them together in the Flow in a way that I think is really, really interesting. So I'm very excited to see where you take that entire tablet platform, basically.
Oh, absolutely. It is really interesting the way that the mobile and desktop and laptop spaces have converged. I mean, we've also got the ROG Ally handheld, right?
Yeah,
you have every step from ultra portable phone all the way up to desktop, and all of these departments are kind of learning from each other and kind of incorporating their own, they did something really cool. Let's steal that from them and put it over into this device. And it ends up making really great. I mean, this ROG phone, I love this thing so much. I've been using this as my work phone since around the time it came out. I mean, gaming on it is obviously amazing, but as a daily driver too, we put a lot of work into making it a slimmer profile than some of the previous ROG phones, right? Like you had seen.
The ROG phone always feels like it could be your main phone. It's not like some gaming phones out there, they will remain nameless, that are really just optimized for gaming. And then, you you sacrifice on camera performance, you sacrifice on everyday productivity. That's one of the things I like about the ROG phones is that, I was at Qualcomm's event in Hawaii and Sasha was there and he showed us the phone, right? He's like, took a bunch of us aside, said, hey, by the way, don't post it yet, but here's the phone. And because it was one of the first 8 Elite phones from, with Snapdragon 8 Elite.
Yeah,
so,
it was.
I wrote a story on Tech Radar. Usually I write about EVs and car technology on Tech Radar, but I was on site and the guys goes, can you hit that? I'm like, sure. Yeah, I'll write about the ROG Phone 9 and my first impressions. And so, yeah, I think this is one of the things that I generally like about the ROG products is it's like, yes, they are gaming focused, especially the Strix series, right? But I think that you also are always making products that are, can be your one product.
That's the goal.
And I think the Flow kind of fits that as well, which is really exciting.
The Flow absolutely does. The Zephyrus, that was like the whole idea behind the Zephyrus devices, right? And the new design of the ROG phones that we started last year, it was kind of almost, the way they described it to me was like, we're trying to do the Zephyrus version of the ROG phone.
Yeah,
it's thin,
exactly.
It's got that better camera. I think Tom's guy just said that this had the best battery life of any phone that they tested.
Well,
and I fully believe
possible.
it because it's the best battery life of any phone I've ever used. This thing can last multiple days. It amazes me every time.
What does the battery life look like on the Flow? I mean, obviously it's going to vary quite a bit. If you're playing like something really intense that pulls, the GPUs, the NPUs nuts. But like in general, like there are some benchmarks of the measurements. Can you give us a ballpark idea of what, you can expect? Because, I don't know. Like,
it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, right? Which is it really depends on how you kind of tweak some of that stuff. Like when I'm if you use these gaming laptops and you leave the GPU turned on and the TGP maxed out and everything, like your battery life is going to suffer a little bit, which is why when I'm gaming, I like to plug in just so I can get that max performance and game as long as I want. But when I'm just using it for web browsing, for work, productivity stuff, right? Watching YouTube videos, things like that. You tune that stuff. You turn off the dedicated GPU on the laptop or you put the TDP down. Yeah, you could totally make it last for hours all day long. I absolutely use this as my work laptop. You said, especially when I'm traveling, I want something small but has good battery life, something I can actually open on the plane and use for the entire flight.
You want to be able to do a transcontinental flight with 40 or 30% battery life left at the end, right? with dimming the display. That's my benchmark. Like just web browsing. Like I'm not talking about playing games, right?
Exactly.
But if you can do that, and at the same time, when you get to your hotel room, crank it up to 11, right? Like that is magic.
And play video games in bed. That's the dream.
Yes. Everybody wants to play video games in bed. Before we wrap up, tell us a little more about what's new with Ally lately, because I haven't been following and I'm kind of curious.
Oh, so this is the device we released last year. This is the ROG Ally X. This was we took the original Ally, which is our handheld. It's a handheld gaming system, but it runs Windows. So if you already have games on Steam and Xbox Game Pass and Epic and all that stuff, you can play all the same games. You don't have to rebuy them for a separate console, which is really nice. But we kind of took all of the feedback from the original ROG Ally and put it into this kind of ultimate PC handheld. This is still an incredible on-the-go gaming device. I have to admit, I don't game as much on my laptop anymore because this thing is just so convenient to have in the palms of my hands. But it all depends on kind of your use case, right? I have a coworker who the Flow Z13 is his main gaming device everywhere he goes, right? Like that's his preferred way to play.
And I kind of feel honestly that my audience would be more into like a device that can do multiple things. That's why, the Ally I think is for the people who will purposely carry a Nintendo Switch alongside an Ally in their bag because nothing, comes close to either of those two for their respective use cases.
It's funny though. I have seen a remarkable number of people that are using the Ally as like their main desktop.
Do they dock it basically?
They take it on the go, come home, dock it to a monitor, mouse, keyboard, maybe an external GPU, and it's a desktop machine or a living room console at home, which is awesome.
Smart.
I love that all of this stuff is possible now because I could totally see myself being like, you know what? I want this tiny thing to be my only computer and it has the performance to do it, especially with like an external GPU. Come home, dock it. You've got a full battle station. No need to sync files between machines or anything like that. Like the ultimate mobile workstation kind of. And the Flow Z13 can do that too. That's what it was designed for.
So this is what's great, guys. ROG, ASUS is giving you the options. You can go crazy with a Strix laptop, carry like that thing in your backpack if you really want to. You can go super lightweight with a ROG Phone 9, or you can kind of find something in the middle like the Flow or the Ally, which I think, or the Zephyrus, which I'm a big fan of. Ever since you put that LED light strip in the back, you know, the little thing that was customizable. When that was launched at CES, I can't remember, 2018, I want to say, whatever it was.
Something like that.
I remember putting Mobile Tech Podcasts on there and like, and Theo, my producer, was there too. And we were like, oh my God, we need this so bad. It was the white one, you know, the original.
Yep.
I
hot. Still have it here. It's I every time I use it, people remark on it. They're like, whoa, what is that? That's so cool. And we actually moved that to the Strix laptops this year, which I think it makes a little more sense on the Strix laptops, honestly, because they're meant to be so customizable and kind of have this extra gamer flair. So yeah, it just looks so cool.
Well, listen, thank you so much for being on the show. I wish I could talk with you a bit longer. We should have you back on at some point so we can nerd out about some other ROG products. But thanks again for being on the show. Appreciate it.
Anytime. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks. And we're back, folks, with the lovely Nirav Gondia, all the way from London. Hi, Nirav. How are you?
Hello, darling.
It's funny because I just saw you like a week ago at the Moto Razor thing. And it's like, to me, you're still in New York. Like, you know, you never left. To me, it's like you're always somewhere nearby.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I left to come back here to come back over the weekend for 24 hours. I am in New York for 24 hours. There are people in the world who do Houston to New York. I do London to New York for a day.
Let's be real. What you need is a Concorde to come back.
No, what I really need is people to like coordinate their schedules, maybe. So I've got things here and things in Europe, and the events are all over the place right now.
It's good for your frequent flyer miles, so you know, whatever.
I know, and it's really good. I'm not complaining for that, but Lord, I'm getting old, Miriam.
I hear you. We're all getting old. So CMF Phone 2 Pro came out last week, and I covered it on the show. I actually did a little mini unboxing, which was kind of fun, on the podcast for the Patreons. Those of you watching on video, by the way, if you're not watching, there's a Patreon you can subscribe to, patreon.com/TNKGRL. Anyway, I got the phone here. I've been using it for a week, and this is a nice little blue turquoise, whatever color that is. And honestly, this phone blows my mind. Like, this is all the phone you need, 100%. Like, I could rock this phone and not feel like I'm missing out on anything. How's your? I mean, you don't have one.
So
but
they reached out amazingly. They reached out. I honestly, with all the travel, thought I responded. I didn't, but not in time to at least meet the first allocation, which I would have it here. And I am so gutted because it feels like nothing has found their formula. Yes, you know, I saw Carl teasing the 3 coming up later this year and whatever, but
this is where it's at, man.
Yeah, there's not.
This is
they
what
can
they do.
Make some money in the high end, sure, but they could literally dominate people in this price point. And let me kind of say, but everything else also coming up, like, it's really nice to see that the sub $600, sub $400 mark is the new flagship battle. Everyone cares about affordable phones now, especially as we enter a recession, especially as we enter the challenges of tariffs and everything that could affect the bottom line price and availability of a phone.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people going, okay, what does $400 get me instead of $14? Turns out $400 to $600 gets you 98% of the phone, if not more.
So I'll actually tell you what you get for the extra money, right? I'll be completely upfront with you. This is what you get for the extra money. You get OIS on cameras. This does not have OIS, either on the 2X telephoto or the regular, which are both 50 megapixels. It has electronic stabilization, so it crops the sensor a little bit, and it works. But, you know, it means longer exposure times, lower low light performance because of that. That is definitely a fact. This thing does not perform as well in low light. But here's the thing that surprised me the most, Nirav. Because, you know, coming from the Phone 3A Pro, which is the previous nothing phone that I used, which has that stabilized 3X telephoto with, the periscope, which took phenomenal, like zoomed in photos. This phone can do 10x without any major loss because it's doing the AI thing that we've seen Oppo do. Like, in fact, when you use the zoom slide on it, it tells you, like, it shows you where it says it has a different graduation, like a different line past 6x. And you know that when you're in that zone, you're in the AI zone. So yeah, it can be in a bit uncanny valley, but the end result is you get like incredible detail and incredible quality on zooming. And I did not expect that. Never mind on a $500 phone. I did not expect that on a $279 phone.
That's the crazy takeaway. Like they absolutely have smashed it. And if all they did was release a CMF successor every single year, and then maybe a series, they've killed it. But I think it also, the thing for me is when I think back to retail and stuff, it's not just about the camera. Yeah, the camera is important.
Yeah, but I was going to tell you all the other things you're missing out. So hang on, I'm not done yet. So the cameras, no OIS. The rest is great. This is a much better camera system than last year. I mean, the mid sensor is the same, but overall, the software experience, everything about the camera, great. Low light, TBD right now, I'm still testing. But the other thing you're missing out on is you get a full plastic body, right? Like this is obviously, there's no metal or glass here other than the front. And it's also not the highest, most, rugged glass. So glass, all this Gorilla Glass stuff that we hear about, ceramic, all that, there's always a compromise between scratchability versus breakability, right? So you either make a glass that's scratchable and doesn't break, or you make a glass that's not scratchable but breaks. So, it's getting better on both sides, but you have to balance. So this is like 5 years ago's glass. Okay, so put it in a case. Like this comes with a case in the box for $279. TPU case. It holds you over, get another case. The other thing it cuts out on, last year I was going to say was NFC, but this year has NFC so you can make payments. It's amazing. That was the only thing that bothered me about CMF Phone 1 last year. The other thing you're losing is wireless charging, but at $279, who cares? But I'm just saying, compared to the $600 extra you spend on a flagship, right? The Dimensity 7300 Pro is perfectly fine. Like, I have not seen a single stutter. Everything I've ran is fine. There's enough RAM. There's enough storage. There's micro SD. You can add storage. Like,
wait, okay. What?
Yes.
Wait, yes. What?
Yes. And dual SIM micro SD. No eSIM though. That's another thing. You don't get eSIM. But I think that's not a cost thing. That's got to be like 2 cents.
No, do you know what I think that is? That is 100% a certification and a SKU thing.
100%.
They do not want this to be SKU certified, different areas. It's like,
absolutely.
How do you make the bare bones experience and make it work for as many people as possible? You don't put eSIM.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, certifications, bands, right? Obviously, this does not have all the bands for North America, but trust me, I've used it on T-Mobile and AT&T so far in the States and in Canada. And of course, Verizon's off limits. But if you're on Verizon, folks, I understand because you're on family plan or whatever and you got a deal, but you shouldn't be, okay? That's the reality. Verizon Invisible, avoid at all costs because you can't use Chinese phones. You can't use any cool phone. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. So if you're in my audience and you're tech savvy and early adopters, I understand if you're on Verizon because of, reception is good at home, reception is good at work, you have a family plan, your parents are paying for it, you're whatever it is. I respect that. But trust me, you'll be much happier if you like to change, swap phones, play with phones. If you're on T-Mobile especially, AT&T will complain, send you nasty texts, la. They're fine. I love AT&T. They're very generous, supplying me with service right now and stuff. But come on.
Someone who just became a supplier, a customer of both Verizon and AT&T, mostly do some roaming testing, which seems to be working well for me at this point. It's surprising. Verizon's just AT&T is very like, oh, it's going to stop working. Maybe it'll work. It will start to work. T-Mo is the easiest by
T-Mo
far.
And Mint, Fi, those three, like are all T-Mo. So go nuts. Like I'm not saying you have to be with T-Mo because T-Mo's customer service and plans haven't been as competitive lately, in my opinion, compared to back in John Ledger's day. But John Ledger is gone, and that we just have to accept that T-Mobile is just
I'm excited to try US Mobile and those guys because I think those MVNOs is where you make save money. Anyway, we're getting off the
Yeah,
topic.
the point is it's important to know that if what you're missing out on is bands, right? Like, so that's another thing to keep in mind. But if you're in Europe or in Asia, this phone will work just fine. So that's basically all you're missing out on. I can't think of anything else. Like, while it's okay, charging speed is only 33 watt, and only these days is kind of a joke, right? Because it's a lot, but it's not.
It's still
enough.
faster than an S25, which costs $1,000.
And the battery, okay, here's the other thing, right? You know, the Chinese phones now, and this is technically a Chinese phone, as no nothing is London-based, but it's made in Shenzhen. So this phone does not have over 6,000 milliamp hour. Most of these affordable-ish phones from Redmi, Xiaomi, or like, you know, Realme, Oppo, BBK Group, former BBK Group, are having 6,000 plus milliamp hour battery on their $300 phones now. We're not quite there yet. It's 5,000. Battery life is great, but I expect maybe next year we'll get a silicon carbon battery in this phone. I wouldn't be surprised at all, to be honest.
So I've got to jump in on the batteries front.
Yeah,
this
sure.
is what makes it interesting. I can tell you this firsthand, someone buying a $300 phone wants the best experience, but does not expect said experience to deliver, you know, the world. They understand. 5,000 milliamp hour battery,
It's
which
fine.
I can safely say will be sold as the same as a Galaxy S25 Ultra, for example.
Yeah.
Why would you say there is zero? No one's going to complain at that.
No.
33 watt charging, faster than that. If I was nothing, this thing would be on the market going 90% of the experience for a third of the price of the Galaxy S25, a quarter of the price, less than a quarter of the price. Do that and you'll sell 10,000 units. You know, like, yes, it doesn't have the bells and whistles, but from someone who doesn't have it, and I love nothing phones. I don't always love nothing phones. I think I'm selective on which ones I really like and which ones I'm like, we'll see. But the reality is, this thing just looks and sounds like a winner. And
it's amazing.
Do you know what, Carl? I hope this is the model. Launch these all day long. And maybe there is one thing I would say. There is such a thing as too many phones.
Yeah, it's getting a little much.
Go CMF, go A series middle of the year, and go Phone 3 at the end of the year with the new chipset. 3 distinct launches. You can still do 2 at a time or whatever, but make it clear like that your A series is your mid-ranger, your CMF is your real budget. Because the CMF Pro was like 400, isn't it?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you're touching on something that's interesting though, because you're saying, like, in my opinion, and I kind of think that's where you're going, why do you even bother with the flagships, right? But at the same time, they're a high-low product, right? So here's the thing. Better profit margins, halo, you sell less. Slimmer profit margin, which is what CMF is, it's got to be razor thin. Come on, they can't be making more than $10 on this phone, right?
I would guess, based on everything they've got in there, and, you know, we both got product experience. So if I had to guess, their margin on this at the maximum 15%, and I would maybe 10 to 15%. And I would say that because I still think they're looking at what do they pay out for affiliate? What is their marketing budget?
Yeah.
What is this? However, I would be shocked if they're making more than 25% on their flagship Halo products,
100%,
but they're selling way
point.
less. So raw dollars into the company. And at some point, I want to ask all this. I might actually just DM in a minute to go, hey, listen to Miriam's podcast and tell me how wrong or accurate I was. If I had to guess, raw dollar value profit comes in at CMF first. Or no,
Yeah.
A series first.
Yeah, A series, you're right.
CMF second. And then the flagship makes them far less, but it's the hero product. The reason I'm guessing that, we've all noticed that they've flipped their model on the head. It used to be flagship and then A, and then CMF, and then they pivoted to A, CMF, then flagship.
You're right.
And you're hearing Carl say, you know, see him on tweeting going, don't worry, there isn't flagship coming later this year. That was his response. That's to appease all the people who go, oh my God, where's the flagship? And that's, you know, a bunch of nerds. But like the reality is you don't need it.
Yeah,
the
but
A
that's
series
exactly
is incredible.
Right. Here's the thing. This doesn't feel any different than using a 3A Pro or a 3A, because even though that has different chipsets, got a Snapdragon 7S Gen 3, this feels probably even faster than the 2A did last year, because that has Dimensity 7200 and this is Dimensity 7300.
Good old MediaTek here.
And the other thing that I think this is the secret sauce, this is the magic that makes it all happen, other than call, which is magic, is the software. It is so polished, so optimized, so well done. This is becoming by far my favorite software on any smartphone, period. Like,
one thing, it's missing in my opinion, that single thing that made nothing so out there, that gave them their name, that gave them that
the
presence.
Glyph?
The Glyph. One Glyph, small as it could be, you know what?
Technically, there is an LED flash back here.
Turn the LED flash into a Glyph.
Yeah.
And the simple reason is it make it slightly bigger so you have a stronger flash. It will help you with low light conditions, without a doubt. It will help them.
You know, you're giving them free stuff here. Like, don't consult for free.
I don't mind. Listen, it's fine.
Come on,
I know these guys well enough that it's no different to what I would say in person, you know?
No, I hear
But the reality is, small Glyph ticks the low light box, ticks the nothing box, and it gets people to go, how do you get people from CMF to 3 series? You take them through the progression of Glyphs.
You know, the other thing I love about this phone is it's thin. It's thinner than the 3A Pro. It's a thin phone. Like, this is without a case right there.
And the colors are gorgeous.
And of course, this has lost some of its modularity. You cannot take the rear panel off anymore. It has these optional, you can remove these screws and that little accessory thing on the bottom there. And then it has these kind of covers that go on top that have magnets, by the way. But obviously there's no wireless charging, so the magnets for just mounting. But it's cool. Like, there's some accessories still. I'm a little bummed that a lot of the accessories from last year didn't. Like, the covers, I understand they wouldn't work. But, like, I think only one, the lanyard, works or something. Like, even the kickstand from last year doesn't work, which supposedly, I don't know. I have them. I'll try them when I get to San Francisco. They're not with me here in Vancouver. But it's a bit of a bummer. But the other thing that's magical about this product is that it comes with accessories, in the sense that you can buy them from CMF. And I'm not talking about the modules. I'm talking about the earbuds. You know, we mentioned them last week.
Oh my
God. I've been listening to these. They're so good. Okay, so I only have the CMF Buds 2 Plus. And of course, I had the 2 Pro that came out early last year. But the 2 Plus sound 90% of the ears, or ear 2A or whatever, the ear A. They are so good for the money. For $69 right now, if you're looking for noise canceling wireless earbuds that have my stamp of approval for audio performance, that's it. Even the 2 Pros that came out in the summer don't sound as good. So the 2 Pros are actually a step backwards, and they're more expensive. So I say this phone with those buds, unbelievable combo. Like, I cannot wrap my head around how affordable that is.
I'm looking at some of those pictures in that, but like the modular lens, it wouldn't take them much to then go and add, like, those accessories separate.
Oh, the lenses are cool. I don't have them. They didn't send me anything, unfortunately.
Can you imagine being able to then go, hey, yeah, now you can go and buy a 10x zoom.
Yeah.
10x telephoto lens.
But as I'm saying, it's
charge
so good already.
$150 for it. You'll start making way more money doing that than you will anything else. It's like, this is the nothing formula. And it turns out nothing has something.
Yeah. Let me actually show you on video here. I know you're not going to see the full quality, but this is a 10x shot with 10x. This is 10x with nothing phone CMF 2 Pro.
I'd wager that that's a better 10x based on what I'm seeing than certain $1,000 phones.
And this is 20x.
It looks high quality.
Look at how sharp that is. You know, and I'm just saying, like, that blew me away, because, like, the iPhone 16e, my review just got published 2 weeks ago or whenever it was, on Hot Hardware. That doesn't take 10x and 20x photos that good. And that's a $600 phone
I don't
or whatever.
Think you can even, I think, if I remember correctly, because my
this takes better photos, zoom photos than the 9A, the Pixel 9A, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I'm thinking, if I remember correctly, the iPhone 16e, isn't that limited to 8x?
Correct.
And they are absolute garbage photos.
At 8x they are.
they're garbage at 2x. Well, no, 2x I found
No, they're
was
good
fine.
up to 4x roughly.
And then anything above 2x, I was like, I can see it will work, but it's not the way I'd want to do it. Yeah, man. CMF Phone 2 Pro just looks like fire.
It's
a winner.
amazing. It's amazing. I'm very, very impressed. And that's
I'm
why
going to send them an email going,
don't do it now, man. We're in the
no,
podcast.
I'll do it later. Don't worry.
All right. So let's talk about some news because we got a bunch of Samsung stuff and I thought that would get you excited. I'm excited.
We do like Samsung.
Of course we like Samsung. I want to say that, I'm not here to be cranky about it or anything, but I do find their launch strategy a little confusing here. It seems like they're being very selective about who they're reaching out about this phone. And the only concern I have here is not like I want to be a part of the special people who are getting early access or whatever. It's more like anytime a company gets selective about who they reach out to about their new device coming, it tells me something's wrong with the device. And that's almost always true. So here's the thing. We all know that the risk of making a slim phone means a risk of a decreased battery size and poor battery life. Everything else about it, I think they can pull off. I think that they have I'm talking specifically Samsung here. I think they have the technical chops to pull off a thin phone. No problem. It's been done before. Everybody's going nuts right now about the iPhone Air, the 17 Air, whatever it's going to be called, the slim one, that's going to be coming out because the ones used for showing at a store.
The mocks. The dummy phones.
Thank you, dummies. Wow, that was painful. The dummy phones are coming and are in the hands of people, right? Here's the thing, though. It's 5.5, right? And of course, the Edge, the S25 Edge is 5.8. Everybody's completely forgetting that the Moto Z original, the Verizon model, 4G LTE, was 5.2 millimeters thick.
1,000%
can
agree.
we please go to eBay and find a Moto Z? Because when we're doing our reviews, we're going to need to have a conversation about why everyone is losing their freaking minds right now about 5.5 and 5.8 millimeters when nobody batted an eye 10 years ago when the Moto Z came out at 5.2. So I don't understand. I'm into this. I'm happy that we're seeing new form factors, well, quote unquote, new designs that are thinner. Great. And I understand the consequences of battery life, especially for Samsung, because, they have trauma from back in the day of the Note 7. They need to see a therapist. They haven't done their homework. So because of that, let me finish. Because of that, they're afraid of putting a silicon carbon battery in there. But considering all that, why are we not talking about how it's really not a big deal that a phone is 5.5 millimeters thick?
So I would normally agree with you, and I'm going to go completely contrarian to you because, we love this.
Yes.
The reality is it's not apples to apples because say iPhone, so what did they say? 5.8 on the Galaxy S25 Edge. Fine. With that, you've gone from, and I've just pulled up some specs to give it that contrast of like what you get. Moto Z, 5.5 inch QHD AMOLED display, 13 megapixel camera, 2600 milliamp hour battery, 5.2 millimeters thick. S25 Edge, rumored to be 6.7 display, is it? 6.3? I haven't paid attention. 2 cameras, a 200 megapixel main with a 13 megapixel thing, 3800 really rumored battery, 5.8. Yes, the Moto Z, for the time, if you look at the Moto Z versus what came out in there, that would have been the iPhone 5S time.
Yeah.
iPhone 5S, that was 7.6. Okay, fine, I understand. Like the Moto Z is really slim, obviously. But the reality is these are very different phones. That said, I don't think it's a whole new category that's gonna be a thing unless and until a few things happen.
Yeah.
The price is not a compromise because it will be a compromise price between the Plus and the Ultra. Even though I'm glad that based on leaks, Samsung is not just doing oh my God, look, we took a little bit of this and this. No, it feels like the Edge has got its own identity of it's got the big camera. It's got this. It's not just we bish-bashed everything together as we could for parts. This feels like it's more substantial than that.
Yes.
Apple might inspire this, but I think what's going to ultimately happen is that it's not going to take off in the same direction. And the sole reason being, there will be people who want thin phones, but there will be equally the same number of people, if not more, who are like, it's thin. I'm worried about its fragility. I'm worried about battery life. It doesn't have a telephoto. It doesn't have this. Yes, it's thin, but there are compromises
for sure,
substantial in that regard.
Here's the thing, though. I think that the compromises in terms of camera, I think we're not going to see major compromise in terms of camera and imaging.
I think it will actually
Samsung.
land on the camera.
We will on Apple, because Apple will never do what I suggested they should do. What they should do is have a 200 megapixel sensor like Samsung, and they should have that 200 megapixel be a 0.5 lens. It should be an ultra wide. Then you can keep cropping until you get to about 4x, and then it falls apart. But at least you can get to 4x with a 200 megapixel sensor and pixel binning and all that computational stuff. But they're not going to do that because they're Apple and they're conservative. They're just going to put a nice, really high quality 48 megapixel sensor in there. And then they
wouldn't give it a
1x.
200 until the rest of the lineup has the same 200, because they cannot. Maybe, in fact.
But this could be the first.
What? Yeah, that actually would make logical sense. States that based on us using the 16E, if that's the same camera and it's a single camera.
No, it's not going to be a 16E camera. Absolutely not. Do you understand that the 16E sensor is the ultra-wide sensor on the 16 Pro? You do understand that's the same sensor. The lens is different, but it doesn't even have sensor shift OIS. It's basic OIS. That is why it's the pixels are tiny on that 48 megapixel of the 16E, which is why it can't zoom, and just why low light is compromised.
So I wonder if
it's going to have to be the main sensor that we have on the 16 Pro. So it's going to have sensor
unless
shift.
They're going new sensors on 17 Pro, 17 Pro Max, and 17 Air.
Yeah, but hopefully it's sensor shift, because that would make a big difference. And I don't know. I'm just saying that I'm concerned about the battery on Samsung and the camera on Apple for these thin phones. Apple's going to do the battery right, mostly because either they're going to optimize the software to be, super efficient, or their new chip, the A19, is going to be super efficient, and they can put a regular smaller battery in there, like a 3 or 4,000.
It won't be either of those. I reckon the secret to Apple getting great
silicon
battery
carbon?
life.
You think they're going to go silicon carbon?
Not silicon carbon. I think it's the C1 modem. Because the single best thing about the iPhone 16E
is the C1
by far
modem.
is just how spectacular that battery life is. I would go back to a 16E if it had a better camera.
But here's the other thing that a lot of people, I don't want to derail the Edge conversation, but the 16E has another thing that I think a lot of people are not aware of. And because it has a smaller sensor on the camera, yes, it's worse in low light. Yes, zooming is an issue. But here's the thing that's killer about the 16E camera. You can actually do close-up shots with it. I can use it like this close to a product when I do videos on the 16 Pro. When I went from my 12 to my 15 Pro Max, I couldn't do close-up shots anymore with the main sensor, because the main sensor is so big that it cannot focus that close. And
I hate it.
You know how I do my videos, like first-person view, right? So I was annoyed because I was like, what? And so I felt like it was a downgrade for me. And so when the 16E came out, I was like, oh, let's try doing video with this. And I can do what I used to do with it. So right now, the only way I've been doing my videos close up with an iPhone 16 Pro or 15 Pro has been to use the ultra wide and zoom in. So I lose resolution, right? I lose quality a little bit. Now, it's a good enough sensor. It's not too bad. But that, to me, is another thing that, if you only have one lens, you need to, I'm not saying you need
You
to have
need to
macro
make sure it has
photography,
everything.
but you need to have the ability to do something a little better. So anyway, that's an aside. So here's what I'm thinking. No silicon carbon on the Edge. Absolutely not, because Samsung's trauma. So the S25 Edge, cameras are going to be great. Battery life's going to be iffy because it's going to be Snapdragon 8 Elite. It's not going to be, I mean, that's a really good chip, and I'm not knocking on Qualcomm here. I'm just saying
But it takes a lot of power.
we know what it does, right? So that's what I'm saying. We know the battery consumption. And if there's rumors of a, what is it, 31, 32, 3,800,
I
almost
think it's
4,000.
3,800.
That's going to be painful.
3,900 with 25-watt charging. I'm going to be honest, I like that they brought back the Edge branding. It looks, the camera module, as rumored, looks kind of like a, basically like an iPhone in some ways.
Yeah.
Or like an old S21. But you know what?
I like the aesthetics, honestly. I'm happy with that.
I think it's fine. The thing
It's
that
also not
concerns
super thin.
me
Like,
a lot.
I'm sorry, but 5.8 is not, like, as you said, the iPhone 6, whatever, was 5.8. Like,
No, it was no iPhone. That was that. I thought it was 7.6 in the end.
oh, wow, okay.
I remember it as thing. But it's going to weigh 163 grams. That's pretty good.
Nice.
It's IP68. Again, just based on rumors and stuff. It's got the Gorilla Glass ceramic too. It's going to have...
so that's the big news that's official this week.
Everything that you need. I just don't know if it's going to sell...
Well, that doesn't matter.
Well as
this is
Samsung
a Halo
wanted to.
product. I think this is the kind of product that the fashionistas and the stylish people are going to buy. Even more so the iPhone Air. There's a market for it. It's not a mainstream market. It's like the folding phones. And again, this is why I'm happy.
But
I'm
to
happy
go back
about
to your
this
original
new
point quickly, Miriam, way back to the beginning of why has Samsung taken this approach to the launch? I think you just answered that
No,
question.
I know that, but it's annoying because I would like to think that it's going to, even though it's going to be some compromises, no silicon carbon, the battery life, that's kind of where I was going with this, is that, like, I don't understand why Samsung doesn't know that us, the tech nerds, understand the compromises, and we're not necessarily against that form factor. Like, I think new form factors are interesting. I am all on board for a slimmer phone that becomes a product in everybody's product line. We're seeing it in China partially with the 13T and these other phones from the former BBK Group brands that are making these thinner silicon carbon batteries and all that. It's a thing, and I think it's valid. Why are they afraid to give why do they only want to give the phones to the fashionistas and the lifestyle people when really a lot of us tech people are going to be impressed with them?
If I had to guess, pure guess, but this comes from a place of I had a couple of different companies say similar things to me. The people that it seems to be mostly focusing on, some exceptions, is video. And I think we're going to see that with ultra thin phones, and it's not just Samsung, we're going to see that with others.
Apple,
where
probably.
Video and the ability to showcase the thickness, the realm of it is going to be an integral part. Because I remember having taken not close photos, but zoom lens on my camera of the Edge during the year. It's kind of difficult. I look at the Find N5. That's kind of hard to showcase just how thin it is unless you're doing it in video. So that could be a thing. I mean, I think the next week or two is going to be very telling about all sorts of things, 100%. All sorts of phones,
Yeah. But I like the idea of a new form factor. And I think I want Samsung, if you're listening, to understand that those nerds here, this tech-savvy early adopter audience, us, Nirav and I, we appreciate this idea of a thin form factor, and we want to see it succeed, and we want to see it not make compromises, which is why, obviously silicon carbon would be the solution. Hopefully Apple does it too. These are two very conservative companies that right now do not want to innovate. They're leaving it to the Chinese. They don't need to innovate because they own the North American and Western markets right now, right? Like, they still sell really well in Europe, Apple and Samsung, even though they have more competition there. So I think I would have loved to see this Edge, and I know it's not going to happen, but I would have loved to see this Edge be the opportunity for Samsung to go silicon carbon. And I would like to see the Air, the opportunity for Apple to go silicon carbon. And I don't think it's going to happen, but I think it's a missed opportunity, even especially since cost is less of an issue for this. This is a bit of a halo, a special product you can categorize.
I agree.
Also, I think this would have been an opportunity for Apple to innovate. And again, we don't know. Maybe they will. Maybe I'm wrong, but they could have done a 200 megapixel ultra wide that can be cropped into all the other things. And that would be courage. That would be Apple coming out and saying, hey, look at what we can do that nobody else has done. We had a challenge. Let's make a single camera that does everything on a phone. Now, it doesn't do it perfectly, but it does it. That would have been like, oh, wow, okay, cool. But we're not going to see that. They're just going to do basically a thinner, more powerful, more expensive, less compromised iPhone 16e. And yes, C1 modem, awesome. Yes, do I want it? 5.5 millimeters is incredible. Yes. I'm more excited about the form factor and the design of what we've seen from Apple leaks so far than what we've heard from Samsung. Because 5.8, it's good, but it's not. But I'm also much more excited to see what the cameras on the Samsung phone are going to bring to the table.
Yeah, I think this will be fascinating.
So all this to say that the news items around that, like we got so carried away, it's awesome. Was that
anyone who follows this for expecting
they know
on topic, non-tangential conversations, sorry.
Yeah. So the S25 Edge is launching May 13th. It's probably going to just be 2 countries. This is official, by the way. The countries are not, but the date is official. And it's going to have Gorilla Glass Ceramic 2, which is the latest Gorilla Glass, which I presume is just as strong as ceramic, but probably thinner to make the phone possible.
It was announced yesterday. It's basically designed for ultra-thin devices.
What are your thoughts on the fact that we're hearing rumors of the Z Fold 7 thickness being thinner, at least open, than the Oppo Find N5?
Thank my language. I hope this is PG. Thank bloody God.
Yes, bloody is fine. Thank God. Yes, I agree.
Like this is, I wrote 7 of the articles myself last year. Oh my God, it needs to be slimmer. Oh my God, it needs to be this. The fact is they had to go slimmer. I suspect that last year's special edition will be a one-off that was there to show people that Samsung is going slimmer.
I'm worried this is the SE. I'm worried they're gonna continue resting on their laurels for the North American market, and they're gonna be better for sure, much better. But I think this is gonna be a special edition for Korea or China only, because the main competitors are only sold in China. Think about it. The Oppo Find N5 is almost sold nowhere, and the Honor is the only thing right now that's sold more everywhere.
Okay. What if they went Galaxy Z Fold 7 Ultra?
Or SE?
SE meaning
special edition.
I could be completely wrong. And you might be completely right.
Yeah. No.
But I think it will hamper, because you got to look at where their sales are.
Right.
Yes, they don't, it's all about Asia. But obviously the US is a key market, and we're hearing, I was reading stuff last night that apparently Apple's foldable comes next year here, is when the 18 series is. Whether that's true or not, we know they're working on something. It's Samsung, could Google go thinner? Like, they're not completely, yes, they have, OnePlus and Oppo. They bit the biscuit by not bringing the Find N5 as the Open 2, regardless of price.
Yeah.
But the reality is Samsung doesn't have a huge lot of competition, like you said. That said, I think if they start doing these multiple scalar things, it's going to impact them. And I'll tell you this, I'm not saying this as a tech person. My sister went to buy a Galaxy Z Fold 6, and she turned around and told me, she was like, man, I finally tried it. Wow, that's thick and heavy. I don't want it anymore.
Right.
My sister is a diehard Samsung fan. There are regular non-techie users who desire something, but without the compromise. Now, can you imagine what happens if Samsung brings out a Fold 7 that is that thin? That is 3.8, 4, whatever it ends up being. Well, they basically go and own the folding phone space all over again.
Yeah.
And you do that with the next Z Flip. Well, then Motorola has a real problem on their hands.
I agree with you. I think that Samsung is definitely feeling the heat, but I'm not convinced it's going to result in products in this market that are going to necessarily be incredible like we've seen with Fine N5, Razer even. Although Razer is lighting a bit of a fire under Samsung's butt, right? Speaking of Razer, there's an incredible deal from Best Buy this week. We got to talk about that. It is by far
a genius move.
Do you want to tell my audience what is going on here, Nirav?
Okay, so if you buy a Razer Ultra or any of the Razers through Best Buy, you get clicks for free. And can we just say, we both know Michael, we both know Kevin. This is genius.
Huge news.
Huge. As in, if there was ever a product that was clicks was made for, it is the Razer Ultra, or just the Razer in general.
And we have to give them props. Other news items this week, we have a GT concept from Realme. You know, their GT is that kind of flagship line. So of course they made that crazy concept with the large lens that you could attach to at MWC. You saw that. But this is a 10,000 milliamp hour battery phone concept that is only 8-point-something millimeters, 8.5. So it's a normal thickness phone that is 10,000 milliamp hour battery. Now, if you look at the video and what they show, even though the camera pod looks like it has two cameras, it only has a single rear camera, right? Like they made the motherboard only 2.3 centimeters in height, like the rectangle. Normally it's a bit higher than that. So definitely, and they're using new battery chemistry, But the point is, I'm just saying we're seeing phones right now coming out that are 7,000 milliamp hour battery, like regular phones, like normal, that have all the features, that are not compromised in any way, that are not thicker. So I think within a year or two, we're going to start seeing 10,000 milliamp hour Android phones in China or in some markets, especially in the mid-range and the low end. Mark my words.
And they're not going to look like the Energizer durable
they're going to be this normal thickness, 8-point-something, 9.
This is genius.
This is incredible.
8.5 mil, 215 grams, 10,000 milliamp hour battery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couple of more news items before we wrap up, and that's Sony has finally some exciting news on personal and mobile tech, because, Sony makes a lot of great stuff, but it's really rare that we get updates on their headphones and earbuds. It's like every 2-3 years. And it's also, we don't get their phones in the US anymore, but they continue to make the Xperia line, and the Xperia 1 is their flagship. And now they're at Mark 7, which is 7th year of the Xperia 1, and it's coming. There's an official launch on the 13th of May that is rumored. Right now, this is not verified, but keep an ear out for a new Sony Xperia phone. I'm actually really excited about that. I really love the Xperias. Completely missed out on last year's Xperia Mark 6. I never got one. The last one I got was the 5 because they stopped selling in the US and it was really hard to get review units. And then, of course, the headphones, right? You're wearing Sony headphones right now, and
the XM4s.
Yes, and I have the XM4s for travel, and I have the XM5s around the house when I'm not wearing my Beyerdynamics. And the XM6s are supposedly coming. There is a leak of the XM6, and supposedly they have a very similar design appearance-wise to the 5s, but it does have the folding again, because with the 5, they lost the folding. And I thought that was the biggest mistake, because they tried to copy Apple, right, with the AirPod Max. And no. Stick with what you do, Sony. Like, you make the best noise-canceling headphones in the world, in my opinion, bar none. You cannot touch their quality overall, everything. Like the balance of noise-canceling, sound quality, portability. And then they went and ruined the portability. Like, no. So I'm super excited about that. What do you think about the phone? What do you think about the
phone? We'll see. I have a love-hate relationship, but I've owned every single one of the Xperias for less than a month at a time. Always less than a month. Headphones, for those who aren't watching the video, you should, because you will see me doing my best miming cheering celebration, because the XM5s sound better than the XM4s.
They do.
I literally sold them in a day when I realized they wouldn't fold. If this is basically the best of both worlds, I dare you to find a better pair of headphones, because you won't.
And I think we're going to even get better noise canceling, because, it's been 3 years now almost. Can you believe it's been 3 years since the XM5s? I cannot believe it.
It's been 3. Wow.
Yeah, 3. 22. they came out around this time.
Damn.
Yeah. So look, I'm super excited about the headphones, the phone less so, but I'm still, I'm a big fan when Xperia phones come out, like as a photography buff and a big Sony camera fan. Like it's an Android phone. It's a phone. It's got great cameras, even though, there are always some issues with other things. I like that Sony is still just persisting. Unlike LG, they just didn't give up. To them, this must be a complete loss of money every time they make one of these phones. Yet they're like, hey.
No, so just on that,
You
I
think
have
so?
this. No, I think it depends on how they classify it, because all the camera hardware is simply tuning for their pro camera lineup. They made the smartest decision 5, 8, 10 years ago and through the last 5 years.
So it's an investment towards their camera stuff?
Yeah,
oh,
so
good.
they're bringing in display technology like from the Bravia team and bringing in the Bravia team to tune the displays. They're bringing in the Exmor team to tune the cameras, because the same camera technology is going into their cameras. Why do you think all of it? I don't know if you've tried this, but I remember using this on Mark V. Plug a Sony Xperia into a Sony camera, and you have something that even Apple with the iPad and the iPhone and Final Cut
amazing.
Remote doesn't compare to. It's an incredible experience that is designed to work together. If you're looking at this as a smartphone vendor, my God, why are you in business? If you're looking at this as hey, this is table stakes. We know that there's a whole ton of creators out there, and we're not trying to sell them a phone. We're trying to sell them a portable Atmos Ninja 5 4K screen, portable screen alternative. Right. That's also a phone and also a camera.
And can upload content and all that other stuff. Yeah.
This is a one and done scenario. All of a sudden, it makes perfect sense, because
I am just happy that they're persisting at it.
I agree. Maybe we'll come back to, you know what? I think what's going to happen is for 10 years, they're going to keep persisting, and we'll finally be at the point where we're using 4K screens and Sony can go, we were right.
Yep.
We were right for the last 20 years.
Well, of course they were right. I mean, for their market, for what they do, it's perfect.
Yeah. I mean, no one needs a 4K screen. And it also never works in 4K, basically. So anyway.
Nirav, we need to wrap up. And I want to have you on again at some point to talk about the state of Huawei. If we did this now, we would need an entire podcast. And you recently did a comparison between the Pura X and the Moto Razr Ultra. I will put it in the show notes. Also, we have some Microsoft products that came out this week. I will cover them on the show next week. Nirav, thanks so much for being on the show. Do you want to tell folks where they can find your stuff online, where you write, all your social media handles and all that good stuff?
Thank you for having me as always, darlings. Follow me at Nirav, Nirave, on Twitter, at NiravG, so NiravEG, Instagram and other places, and hot.tech, that's HOTDOTTECH, across all socials.
And there you go, folks. You know where to find me on the internet. I'm at Tankgirl, TNKGRL on all the socials. That's like the comic book character, just drop the vowels. And so you'll find me mostly on Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads. But I'm everywhere. So yeah, chat with me and Nirav there. The podcast lives at mobiletechpodcast.com on all the major platforms. So please subscribe and tell your friends. And if your app lets you rate or review the show, please consider doing that. There's also a YouTube channel, youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast with some videos there. Most recently, my hands-on with the Razr phones, so check that out. You know how YouTube works, so like, subscribe, tell your friends, click the bell, comment, tell me things. I'd love to hear them. And then Patreon is where you can support me, patreon.com/TNKGRL. Like I mentioned earlier, you can get a video version of the show there. It's great because you get it in advance and you get it every week for $5 a month. So consider helping me and supporting me with Patreon, patreon.com/TNKGRL. And I want to thank our sponsor, ASUS. ASUS is a global technology leader that provides the world's most innovative and intuitive devices, components, and solutions to deliver incredible experiences that enhance the lives of people everywhere. Republic of Gamers, ROG, is an ASUS sub-brand dedicated to creating the world's best gaming hardware and software. ROG offers a complete line of innovative products known for performance and quality, including motherboards, graphics cards, laptops, desktops, monitors, audio equipment, routers, and peripherals. ROG participates in and sponsors major international gaming events. ROG gear has been used to set hundreds of overclocking records, and it continues to be the preferred choice of gamers and enthusiasts around the world. And Nirav, thanks so much for being my guest yet again.
Thank you, darling. Can't wait for the next one.
Definitely. We'll have you on again. Maybe we talk about Huawei in depth. That'd be great. And folks, we'll have a show next week, so stay tuned for that. Until then, cheers, everybody.
Bye.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.